Welcome back to Metropole Television. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiaga. This is most certainly Business AM. Talk to us. Hashtag is Business AM at Metropole TVKE across all your social media platforms. 20146. That is your SMS line. Let's move on to the issue that we mentioned this morning. Now, the Inter-Regional Economic Network, IREN, that works with micro, small and medium-sized enterprises is set to host a virtual food festival through the IREN Growth Pad platform. It being a virtual event, how will the participation take place? Who will participate? Better yet, how will economies be reactivated? Now, to answer these questions, we are joined by James Shikwati, Director, Inter-Regional Economic Network. James, good morning, sir.
Good morning, and thanks for having me on your show.
Fantastic. Yes, we are talking about a virtual world. Now, the event is a digital event that aims at reimagining tourism and food experiences. What do you mean this morning by when you say reimagining tourism and food experiences?
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, COVID-19 literally forced everybody to start making use of digital gadgets. Either use your WhatsApp, Facebook, cell phone, those who have laptops. And so as Inter-Regional Economic Network, we had been hosting food festivals for the last 5 years. And this year we had planned before COVID to start what we call food tourism for purposes of connecting urban and rural, activating rural economies to make sure that the tourists don't just come to look at the elephants, but also they sample African food so that they can have the best experience. But then, of course, COVID happened and there was that big disruption. And what we did was to go digital. And from April all the way to, as I speak, we set up what we call the recipe platform. And this recipe platform has attracted a lot of interest, both within Kenya, East Africa, and even as I speak, we are partnering with a pharmaceutical company in Europe that says food is medicine. So it is out of this experience that we felt, okay, we need to put together a virtual festival to give more chefs an opportunity to showcase their best recipes, to give our caterers that do catering services in the 47 counties an opportunity to showcase indigenous Kenyan foods, and then, of course, connect them to what we call supporting industries. Because remember, there's the packaging, there's the refrigerator that keeps your food cool, and all this. And of course, we are also bringing together authors that have written recipe books to showcase their best. But to just add an interesting element that we noticed is missing in Kenya is what we call the food bloggers. You know, from the word blogging, there's the bloggers, that's the video photographers that can move from place to place, sampling different foods and promoting our chefs so that food tourism can take off.
Now, James, I was at the point when I was asking you where indeed we're going to lose that aspect of tangibility when it comes to events like this, where hospitality and food needs you to talk to one person, to touch that food, to smell it, to taste it as well. Do you think that we're missing that aspect this year?
Yeah, well, in our virtual food festival, of course, that bit, we are going to miss it, and we are not happy about that. But the good news is that we've what we call the Chakula Chetu Challenge, where the chefs will be showcasing recipes, and you can read through the recipe and try to do it from home, what we call do it yourself. So we are creating a possibility where you can interact, of course, via Zoom, and also a possibility for question and answer. We have in our platform what we call the panelists, where you'll come kunji to interact, through conversation. But the good news is that where you miss the tasting of the food, you compensate by doing it yourself.
Fantastic. That is another aspect as well that is going to be introduced this year. But so talk to me, who can attend this event? Can I attend this event, James? I mean, that's the question that I want to ask.
Actually, the event is open to everyone, not only in Kenya, but all over the world, because what we are trying to do is to position Kenya not only for elephants and rhinos, but also as a food destination. Remember, a lot of the foods that people talk about in urban areas, they'll be mentioning Asian foods or maybe Italian foods, but rarely would you hear Luya food or Swahili food or maybe Borana food. So the purpose of this virtual festival is to activate a conversation across all the 47 counties. And we've been reaching out to all the cultural centers in the 47 counties, encouraging them to showcase the types of foods that their communities produce.
Interesting. You should mentioning that you have been in touch with all the cultural centers to showcase some of the best foods that their communities produce. And I would like to think that such an event needs proper strategic partnerships and strategic collaborations if we're really going to talk about making it look like a tourism event. So talk to me. Who are your partners this year and how strategic are they in bringing out the agenda of this year's event?
First of all, of course, we went to the policy side because we know that for this to work going forward, we need policy innovation in terms of how the tourism in Kenya is structured and managed. So we are partnering with think tanks, the Kenya Policy Institutes on this particular one. And then we're also partnering with some companies that produce, a good example is one called Afrig Test Limited. They produce chibundiro. I'm sure if you go to the retail stores, you buy some pilipili that is made by a lady that manages chibundiro. And also hotels that mostly have a section that focus on African foods. You'll notice a lot of the visitors that book beds in Mombasa or Nairobi, they'll always move out of the hotel to go and have some food at Kosewe or somewhere else. So we are taking advantage of that interest that somebody would like to have the real experience of visiting a region. If you go to Kisumu, you don't want just to stay in Imperial Hotel, you want to go and have fish prepared by Mama Samaki. So that's the kind of initiative we are looking at. But now to your question about structure, we know that the biggest challenge is standards, because if you don't have proper standards for public health, standards of how the food is handled and the safety, that's going to be a big problem, because you don't want somebody sampling some food from Borana or Western, and then they end up in hospital having tummy issues. So as Inter-Region Economic Network, our purpose is not really to cook the food. Our purpose is to activate this conversation and then connect to relevant authorities to ensure the standards are established, and then going forward, have food tourism as part of a key component in Kenyan tourism menu.
Pretty much, James, I want to ask you that question. I mean, Kenya is known as a versatile area when it comes to culture. So can you paint for me a picture of where we stand now when it comes to food tourism, because there's a bigger stress of your event this year?
Well, first of all, I would say the coastal part of Kenya really benefits from this, because many of the tourists that go to those five-star hotels, mostly make use of the beds, but then they eat elsewhere. So already the coastal people who have prepared their restaurants well, that meet international standards, actually get a lot of money. But for now, of course, we know with the 91% tourism down, they are also missing out in this particular case. Now, when it comes to Nairobi, we know that, again, a lot of what we call conference tourists, those who attend events in Nairobi, after the conference, they don't want to stay in a Sarova hotel for food. They want to move elsewhere to be able to sample the food. And then there's what we call the nightlife. Irene is borrowing from international cities where they even have what they call the night mayor, the daytime mayor and the night mayor. And from research, people spend more money at night than daytime. It seems like at daytime, everybody's cautious, checking on their wallet not to spend, but immediately the sun sets, people start spending money. So it's out of this that we are looking at a possibility to promote even what you'll call the home-based chef, where somebody can have dinner in somebody's home, but it's in a structured manner, so that the money is spread out instead of the money just being locked into one particular facility.
Fantastic, James. I mean, let's talk about this as well. Remember, when we're talking about tourism and food, it means that you have to incorporate some other important sectors that are going to bring this out. Can you mention to me what are some of the important sectors you're actually targeting with this event, and in what way do you want them to come in?
Yeah, there's what we call the logistics, the movement, the vans that take tourists, let's say, to Masai Mara. Such companies, the travel agents have to be part of this. Otherwise, then the food experience will miss the possibility of a van stopping by in a place where you've got food. So we have to have the travel agents involved, because we have to have the hotels involved. But the government is key in this, because we are looking at a possibility of championing for a policy where big hotels must incorporate at least on their menus indigenous foods, because then that way then the food experience can be sampled from a 5-star position for those tourists who fear to move out, but we would like at least 80% to be done by indigenous chefs, not necessarily in a 5-star setting. So the government, travel agents, the associations of hotel keepers, all these are part of what we are targeting. And then we're also looking at the middle class. Middle class means a lot of the families that have been brought up in urban centers can no longer connect to how to prepare foods from their cultural background. So that's also another area we are looking at, and we are super excited that some of the entries we've received for blogging, that is food, videography, has been coming from mostly the urban-based population. And we've had a few, I would say, students also trying it out as chefs, and we are also just encouraging them. But at the tail end, we have experts that will then be training for those who are new entrants into this experience. But so far, for those that will be showcasing on our platform, they are experienced chefs and experienced travel bloggers.
Fantastic. Just before I let you go so that you start getting the logistics of the event together. I mean, yes, people say, James, we have tourism sector, we have the hospitality industry in the country. It is there, it is alive, but what is really missing are the inefficiencies of value chain, where, yes, it exists, but to a lesser degree, and then we don't get this trickle-down effect where we're going to feel it everywhere, and then we say, well, when you're talking about Kenya or when you're talking about Africa, these are the specific characteristics when it comes to food and tourism. Anything that you're going to make sure this year that we start chatting about cutting down these value chain inefficiencies?
Well, I think the basic is, as I mentioned, standards. Because remember, the income from tourism is what I call temperamental. It's not billions like constructing standard gauge railways. So many people don't want to really invest time. It's money that trickles in little bits. It needs a lot of patience, and therefore, standards is the best way to create a platform where if somebody subscribes to these standards, then they can always have their little trickle effect to their budget. And I know for government people, it's not exciting because they like big projects where they can have their big cut in terms of billions. But in terms of promise, we are looking at something that can actually double the tourism income for this country for both domestic tourism and international tourism, because the concept we've had before is that a tourist must be a foreigner. But now we are looking at a possibility. 47 counties actually create potential for people to move from county to county as tourists. And post-COVID, now that we've been under lockdown, really, people are under pressure to try and move out of the space they have been confined in for the last 6 months. And this is the perfect opportunity to try out on food tourism.
Fantastic, James. Now, I don't know whether it's okay for me to ask this question, but I know it's quite okay for me to do that. From where you're sitting this morning, James, and I know you have this image of exactly how the economy should look like when we're talking about food tourism. Briefly, though, can you paint for me that picture? Because I know you have it vividly.
Well, the point is, if when people talk about a vehicle, they know that it must fuel, and therefore they are petrol stations, right? And when you talk about food, I mean, human beings, we're just like vehicles. I'm seated here because I already have had some coffee. I look forward to having lunch. So the economy runs purely on having people fed, and this is a perfect way of, getting the country to develop. Number two, if you look at all the innovations we have, they start from food basically, because people need to carry food long distance. So you start having packaging. And then even if you look at the airline industry, you have to feed people while they're up in the sky. So a lot of innovation has to come in place. So the food tourism is not just about eating, it's also about kickstarting an innovative process and involving young people, because remember right now I see kazi kwa vijana all over cleaning trenches. But a lot of these young graduates without jobs can actually play a big role in the food value chain by inputting their innovations of how we can package, send food long distances, and ensure that everybody has the experience of 47 counties within their homes. And all this really is not just about eating, it's also about kickstarting other support sectors to the food industry.
James Shikwati, Director, Inter-Regional Economic Network, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We wish you success, and hopefully I'll be part of the attendees today at your event.
Please, you're welcome.
I'll be doing that. Take a short break. Once we come back here on Metropole Television, it is our economic review. Let's take a look at those biggest headlines that you're waking up to this morning.